You're standing in Rome, and the empire has just fallen, and you have absolutely no idea. It's the year 476. The greatest empire the world has ever known has officially ended. Somewhere across the city, a teenage emperor has been removed from a throne he barely sat on. And you go to the market, you buy bread, you pay in Roman coins, you argue with a neighbor under Roman law. Tomorrow the Senate will meet as it has for 1,000 years. Nobody tells you the empire is over, because nobody in Rome, in 476, thinks it is. So why do we? Why does every timeline, every textbook, every documentary put a hard black line across that year and say, this is where Rome fell? The answer is stranger than you think, because the Roman Empire didn't fall in 476. Large parts of it didn't fall at all, and the date you were taught was chosen centuries later by people who needed the story to have an ending. Let's start with what actually happened. In 476, a soldier named Odoacer removed the Western Emperor from power. His name was Romulus Augustulus, and he was a boy, probably in his teens. His authority didn't stretch much past Italy. He had been installed by his own father less than a year earlier. He wasn't a Caesar commanding the world. He was a child holding a title. And here's the part that gets left out. Odoacer didn't burn Rome. He didn't declare the empire abolished. He took the imperial regalia and sent it east, to Constantinople, to the Emperor Zeno, with a message that amounted to this. The West doesn't need its own emperor anymore. You are the emperor. I'll govern Italy for you. That is not the end of an empire. That is a management restructure. And Odoacer kept everything running. The Senate stayed, Roman law stayed, Roman taxes, Roman officials, Roman coins, Roman roads. When the Ostrogothic king Theodoric took Italy a few years later, he did the same thing. He ruled from Ravenna, kept the Senate, kept Roman administrators, and issued law in the Roman tradition. To a farmer in Italy, the man at the top had changed. Almost nothing else had. Now here's the question that should bother you. If 476 was the end, why did the Roman Empire keep existing for another 1,000 years? Because it did. Look east. The Eastern Roman Empire, with its capital at Constantinople, didn't fall in 476. It didn't fall in the 500s, or the 700s, or the 1200s. Its emperors ruled continuously. Its people called themselves Romaioi, Romans, not Byzantines. That word didn't exist yet. It was invented by a German scholar named Hieronymus Wolff in the 1500s. Roughly a century after the empire he was naming had already died. Think about that. The name we use to separate the Byzantines from the Romans was coined by a man who was never alive at the same time as either. And in the 500s, the Emperor Justinian did something that should end the argument on its own. He ordered Roman law gathered, cleaned up, and codified. The result, the Corpus Juris Civilis, became the foundation of legal systems across Europe, and it still shapes them today. He also sent his armies west and took back Italy and North Africa. If Rome fell in 476, somebody forgot to tell the man who reconquered it in the 530s. The Eastern Roman Empire finally ended on the 29th of May, 1453, when Constantinople fell to the Ottoman Sultan Mehmed II. The last emperor, Constantine XI, died in the fighting. That is the real end of the Roman state. Not 476, 1453, nearly 1,000 years later. So where did the myth come from? Largely from one man. In the late 1700s, the English historian Edward Gibbon published The History of the Decline and Fall of the Roman Empire. It is a magnificent book, and it did something powerful. It turned centuries of messy, gradual change into a story. Stories need endings. Gibbon gave the West one, and modern historians have been arguing with him ever since. The Belgian historian Henri Pirenne argued the real break in the Roman world didn't come from Germanic kings at all, but centuries later when Mediterranean trade routes were disrupted. Peter Brown reframed the whole era as late antiquity, a period of transformation rather than collapse where the Roman world slowly became something new instead of simply dying. But you should hear the other side, because this is a real argument, not a settled one. The historian Bryan Ward-Perkins looked at the archaeology and pushed back hard. Pottery quality collapsed. Buildings got cruder, literacy narrowed, trade networks shrank. For ordinary people in the West, he argues, something genuinely terrible happened, and calling it a gentle transformation is a comfortable lie told by people who never had to live through it. Both things can be true. The Roman state in the West dissolved into kingdoms. Living standards in many places fell hard. And at the same time, no one closed the empire down, because the empire was never really a thing you could close. It was a system, a language, a legal tradition, an idea about who gets to rule, and that idea refused to die. In the year 800, Charlemagne was crowned Emperor of the Romans by the Pope. The Holy Roman Empire that grew out of that claim survived, in one form or another, until Napoleon's era. After taking Constantinople, Mehmed II claimed the title Caesar of Rome. The rulers of Moscow later declared their city the Third Rome. For over 1,000 years, after your morning in the market, kings, sultans, and czars kept reaching for the same crown, because being Roman was the highest thing a ruler could be. Everyone wanted to inherit Rome, which is a strange thing to want if Rome had actually died. Here's the truth underneath all of it. Empires don't fall the way buildings fall. There is no moment, no crash, no single morning where it's over. They thin out. They get reorganized. They get taken over from inside, so gradually that the people living through it never get a day where someone announces the end. The word fall is a storyteller's word. It's clean, it's dramatic, it's the shape a history book needs. The reality is slower and much more unsettling. Your world can end while you're still standing in it, and nobody hands you the date. So, you're standing in Rome, and the empire has just fallen. You buy your bread, you pay your coin, you argue under Roman law, and you have absolutely no idea, because there is nothing to notice, because it hasn't. Not really. Not yet. And in some ways, not ever.